Hi everybody. Today we're going to take a look at areas of triangles, basic quadrilaterals. We're going to talk a little bit about the perimeter also, just for some of the basic shapes. So let's begin with something we should all be familiar with, and that is the rectangle. Now, you all know that the area, or should know the area, is the amount of coverage. If this was a backyard, it is the amount of grass that you would have. And you probably also know the formula that the area is equal to the length times the width. Well, we're going to have to change this slightly for all of the rules that I'm about to give you. So we're going to change the base, the length to call the base, and the width will be called the height. And so our formula is now area equals base times height, with the qualifier that there must be a right angle that's in the corner between the base and the height. They meet at a perpendicular corner. So base times height. And if we're talking about perimeter, perimeter is the distance around the outer edge. So same thing if this was a backyard. This would be the fence around the backyard. That's called the perimeter. And you would calculate that as two bases and two heights. There are a few other ways of putting this formula. Sometimes you can go base plus height plus base plus height, or you could even go base plus height and then double it. As I said, you have to remember that the base and height must meet at a 90-degree corner. They're perpendicular. So these formulas are going to work the same way for a square. A square is a special type of rectangle because the base and the height are equal. So it's side times side. Now, a parallelogram is like a rectangle that's been smooshed over a little bit. And this is why we have to talk about base and height, because the perimeter, okay, we have two bases. That's the B, and both sides, B and the side opposite to it, and the two sides, which are both called A. Now you could go B plus A plus B plus A, but it's easier to go 2 times B and plus 2 times A. Now, if you were to take that little piece off, you'll realize that this parallelogram is really just a rectangle. And so the formula for the rectangle is still going to apply, that the area is going to be just calculated the same way. Area is going to be base times height. And just remember, when we do this, that the base and the height have to be perpendicular. That's where we're going to put that little 90-degree corner in there when we do the calculations. Moving ahead to triangles. Now, the perimeter is easy enough, just add up all three sides. But the area is a little more complicated. To calculate the area, we can look at this as two different triangles that are kind of connected. It's just a repeat of the two triangles. And what shape did we get? A parallelogram, right? And so the triangle that we started with is just half of the parallelogram. So when we're trying to calculate the area of a triangle, remember the parallelogram would be base times height. If we divide it by 2, that gives us the area of the triangle. So base times height divided by 2, and remember the height has to be perpendicular to the base. Trapezoid is a little strange one because it's like a parallelogram, it's off balance. And so we're going to take a look at this. The perimeter is still the same. You add up all four sides, right? And sometimes there may be a pair of sides that are equal, but usually they're all four different sides. And so the main characteristic of a trapezoid is that the opposite sides are parallel. B and D are going to be parallel. That means they go in the same direction. They're never going to cross. The height is going to be measured perpendicular to the base and to the other base, D and D. And so we're going to be with this dilemma. It's supposed to be base times height, but which base are we going to use, B or D? If we try using base D, we have this small rectangle, and it's not really the size of the entire trapezoid. If we try to look at base B, well, then that's going to be wider, and that's going to be bigger than the trapezoid. So that one's going to be too long. So the way we compromise and the actual calculation is to take the average of the two bases, B and D. So you remember how to take average. You add the bases, right? You add the two numbers and you divide by 2. So we take the average of the bases, and the area is going to be the average of the bases times the height. So B plus D divided by 2. Hopefully that all makes sense to you, and we're going to be practicing this as we go through the next bunch of examples. This is a summary of all of the formulas that we're going to have to know for area. As I said, the perimeter is pretty obvious, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. And hopefully you can understand these. Otherwise, you may just have to memorize. One more thing I noticed about this just now is the base and the height in a square. We say base times height, but you can actually just say side times side or side squared. So that's all for now, and we'll practice with some examples.